Hello, everyone, and welcome to this LEPSL Facebook Live. Today, we are diving into our LEPSL 560 discussion board MVP interview. Thank you all so much for joining us today, whether you are here with us live or watching the replay. And with that, I'll kick things over to the Academic Director, Dr. Eric Fritsvold, to introduce our MVP.
Sarah, thanks so much for the kind introduction and for all the behind the scenes work you do to make all these great events happen. For folks out there in the public safety and law enforcement community, thanks for carving out time to join us today for, frankly, one of the most exciting and enriching conversations and tasks that I get to do in my role as academic director. And that's really celebrate the heck out of the most important part of our program, which are the students, especially those students that raise the level of discourse, that bring some extra vigor, and really facilitate our mission, which first and foremost is for students to share best practices across rank and across geography. So this discussion board MVP discussion emerges from the most prestigious recognition that we have in the program, which is prestigious precisely because it's a peer-driven award. So it's a simple democracy, one person, one vote. The person who receives the most votes from their peers wins and gets recognized as discussion board MVP. It's brought to you, as always, by our 100% online Master of Science degree in law enforcement and public safety leadership. We colloquially refer to it as LEPSL. That's how you hear it throughout this conversation. And I will say, before I introduce our honored guest here, this is only the second time in program history that someone has been recognized in this way in their very first class in the program. So we're going to dive deep into that dynamic as well. So please join me in congratulating our LEPSL 560 discussion board MVP. It's from our effective and impactful leadership course from the Marin County Probation Office, your Chief Probation Officer, Marlon Washington. Chief, huge congratulations. Thanks for taking the time for the conversation today, sir.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm honored to be actually voted by my peers to be the actual discussion board MVP. It's an honor. I've worked in probation, just to give you a little history, for now 26 years, with the last 3 years being as a chief probation officer. But I started my career as an extra help employee in Contra Costa County, where I worked at for 18 and a half years as I progressed through the ranks, of course. And then I went to Napa for 5 years as the director of their juvenile hall. And then in July of 2020, which is rather fitting, 3 years, I was appointed chief here in Marin County. So it's very important to kind of understand that I take this office very seriously. There's a total of 59 chiefs in the state of California, for reference, and San Francisco has 2, so I'm one of 59. That's very important to me because of the fact is, it's a select few of us in probation, and understanding what probation does. A lot of times people don't understand we are a part of law enforcement. We're an arm of the court. We balance social work as well as law enforcement. We have 3 distinct divisions with adult, juvenile, and juvenile hall. I don't want to take too much of the time with regards to.
No, you're doing great,
Right.
Chief. Loud
Yeah.
and clear on my end.
Well, on my end, I just had a blackout. I was like, oh my goodness. So we actually hold offenders accountable for anything they do. We actually are those that supervise individuals when they're out of custody. So in lieu of incarceration, you'll spend time on probation, and we'll connect them to services to improve outcomes, whether it's job, resources. If unhoused, we'll focus on finding housing for you. If it's substance abuse or whatever needs you might have, we actually individualize every approach and case plan to really work with the individual and improve their outcome. So that's kind of what we do. We have mission driven services that we do to hold offenders accountable while promoting their rehabilitation. We utilize restorative justice approaches and various things. So I just kind of wanted to give a little background on what probation is for everyone.
I appreciate that very much, Chief. I think that context frames our discussion in a really, really meaningful way. And I'm always struck, probation has this hybrid mission that, as you mentioned, is in part accountability and in part service delivery and restorative justice. It's really, really interesting. As a nerdy academic criminologist, I find it really interesting, that dual component mission. So one of the things I like to do, you were in class with Chief Dennis Nair when you were recognized in this way by your peers. So I went back and I worked through that class, and clearly your peers recognized both the quantity and the quality of the work you did. So I went through and tallied some things up. The very first week in your first class ever on that introductory discussion board, you posted 29 times. For some context for the folks out there, the requirement is 3. The second module, which is a substantive topic, again, you were depth-oriented, rich, meaningful. I learned a lot reading your posts. You posted 19 times. Again, the requirement is 3. I'm currently teaching our orientation course. So this is for new LEPSL students that'll be starting in September. You clearly were successful from week 1. You won this recognition in your very first class. What advice would you have for these new students about how to be successful on the discussion boards and in the program?
Well, I think you're investing in yourself. So the discussion boards for me was kind of to build a relationship and a rapport with my cohort. And I feel you only have one chance to build a lasting impression. And that's very important, to engage and in depth. And actually, it became one of those things: was I mentally prepared to take on this master's program? Was I ready to dive into it? And once you get in that space that you're mentally prepared to and able to, then it's time to dive in. And one of the things my brother always shares this with me, an old adage, is each one teach one. So as I move through, I figure like, okay, I'm educating myself, I'm learning from my peers, and how can I educate them? And that's one of the things. And I really wanted to enhance my whole experience in this LEPSL program. And being that it was my first class, I actually like, oh, you set the bar. That's what you do. You play sports. Sometimes you have to put your hand up first. You actually have to be the one to lead the charge, and individuals will follow. I wanted to be a value contributor. That was my goal. And actually, I think it's important. I added it to my phone so I could just go into the discussion boards and kind of see what's going on. And it became so inspiring and fun. And I love getting feedback from individuals, supporting individuals. And occasionally I would just read and just learn. And so I said, well, not just learning, I read, and let me explain and expand on different things. And I just think, for advice wise, find time to really read the discussion boards, invest that time, develop your plan, in lieu of surfing the web. I'm not going to say playing different games, because I don't want to give people a hard time that play games on their phones. But in lieu of searching the web, you could jump into the discussion board, and it is a community. So that becomes your community. And we actually don't have the opportunity to actually see and actually be with people, but through these discussion boards, we're able to communicate. And a lot of times people will respond to you. You can provide advice, they'll ask you questions, and you can be very responsive. So in my coaching and mentoring piece of what I love to do, that's why I dove in, and I wanted to be that model student that others could emulate. And this is actually the honor of receiving this, recognition from the individuals, because they must appreciated those posts and my contribution to the discussion boards.
They absolutely did, Chief. And to unpack that a little bit, I'll say from the faculty side of the desk, when you get a student, as we often do, we're very fortunate in LEPSL to have, the program's filled with high achieving, vigorous folks. And you get someone who posts early like you did. I think you were first to post in nearly, if not all, weeks. Mm-hmm. And that sets that high bar with a well-researched and interesting post that connects your experience with the material. It just does such a service for the class, because it's a model, as you mentioned, of what quality work looks like. And, nothing wrong with a little peer pressure. You get a strong start. that's going to trickle down across the entire class. And I love the each one, teach one mantra, which my understanding, not only a great saying, also the chorus of a famous reggae song, but we're going to just keep pushing forward here. So speaking of being so successful right off the bat in your first class, again, as I work in this orientation course, a lot of students want to know about work, life, LEPSL balance. And again, you're, gleaning as much as possible, being as engaged in the courses as you were. And obviously one of the reasons you're being recognized today. What strategies did you use in terms of time management? Obviously you have a busy and demanding career. You have a life outside of work, and you had this rigorous master's degree. How did you make it all work, and how were you, again, so successful right off the bat?
So I would say you have the support of your family. My wife, my son, my daughter, like encouraging, hey, this is an opportunity. We're all committed to your success and what you're doing. I mean, 2 college students. And you have a Real Colors personality inventory. Not a plug for Real Colors, but just to say I'm a gold personality, very organized. And, I pretty much work 6 days a week. I check my emails daily. So, and that would add that 7th day, but 6 days a week. And I figured, let me cut my work week down to 5.5 and commit to this program that other day and a half, an hour. So I really write it into my schedule, similar to like how you have to actually put it on your calendar. I keep 2 calendars, having time built in for breaks as well. So you can actually navigate those different things. Actually, I like the break of sometimes I'll listen to classes while I'm driving in my commute, which I take advantage of the commute. Not saying I love the commute, but I take advantage of that commute. But those are different transition points to allow me to participate and allow me to commit to the program. So I would say schedule the time for the class. So every day I would commit to an hour and a half of time in the evenings. Like when you get home, if you have to listen to something, you could listen while you're cooking. You could listen to different things while you're doing other things because it's online. Oftentimes I'm a little different. I like to listen to each presentation twice. I like to do my readings over. Joe, I get different perspectives. So I listen to it to see what the program is. Then I listen to it for content, and I listen to it for responding. So I think it's about organizing your time. So determine your priorities. You have to set limits. I say learning how to say no, because in a position that I'm in, oftentimes you say yes, 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 you will fill your plate till your water runs over. So you have to understand how to delegate some of the tasks that you normally would take on. Set goals. I set my goals for how much I wanted to respond. I'm like, hey, every day I want to make sure I'm at the minimum first, and then I wanted to go beyond. And oftentimes starting off your week strong, it's kind of like a race. You start off strong, you can pace yourself throughout the end of the week. And then I established realistic deadlines. So I wanted to make sure I contributed not on the last day, but all the way through the week. And then on the last day, I still would contribute because I was like, does someone else need a response to their discussion board? So I'm still here listening. I'm still here participating. So I made sure I did that. But organizing your time and schedule some downtime to ensure you have downtime to actually decompress. So it's really about organizing your time and committing to that and staying to a structured schedule. So I think that's one of the takeaways is if you're not organized, try to become organized, set time aside for the program and actually do it, even if it's in the evenings. I actually try to do my time where it doesn't interfere with family time. So I'll get up a little earlier in the morning, Now I'm back on my Peloton, plug for Peloton, huh? Now I'm back on the Peloton. I can actually watch and read while riding the Peloton. So those are different things that I would say, try to utilize the best use of your time.
Chief, absolutely fantastic advice. With your permission, I'd like to clip that segment and drop it right into our orientation course as an announcement, if that's okay with you.
Please do.
Thank you. Having family support, being deliberate about your approach. And I too use the mobile advantages of LEPSL. Commuting, I'll listen to things. Usually for me, it's the second time. Walking the dog, I'll listen to things usually for a second time. And that's the miracles of modern technology, right? It
Right.
allows us to put it on that Peloton bike or while working out or whatever it might be. Um, so I'm really glad you highlighted kind of those the ways you're leveraging the technology. So
Health and
pushing
wellness is
forward,
everything.
no, it really is. And in some of the upcoming classes, we have entire units about wellness, and we actually hear from some LEPSL students who've been really instrumental in wellness programming. So let's make sure to revisit these strategies at that time as well, sir.
Yes.
Um, so I will say the absolute best thing is plainly evident in this conversation. The best thing about the LEPSL program is the student community. You used the word community earlier. I really appreciated that. We work really hard on the curriculum end, and clearly, I would argue we have the best law enforcement facing faculty in the
Mhm.
country. And we're honored to have folks like Chief Nair and many others doing such a great job. But it's the students coming together to share best practices that um, really stands out, I think, and makes LEPSL so special. Thinking about your time again in your very first course, can you share a little bit about your classmates and where they were from, anyone you interacted with in particular, or maybe any topics that rose to the top as you're looking back on these discussion boards?
Well, when I look back, it's like we had a range of FBI special agents, which is like really cool to me. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm here with the FBI. Uh, Different police, local and city police, as well as sheriffs, which I work a lot with. So I share in some of those things that all of them do. And we had individuals from military as well, collectively, college police forces. So it was a really rich community. And in that community, and I say cohort or community, what we built is we had individuals from entry level officers to executives. So there's a range. So you're often educating everyone and you're learning from them, from their experiences. You had a range of individuals that had been with their departments for years, some newer, officers, and then you also have some that have switched to different agencies. So that's one of the things that I thought was very beneficial. Um, what was interesting because of all the ranks is learning from individuals from New York of their experiences in New York, uh, and what they face and what they have seen. Individuals that dealt with a lot of the social unrest and that were in their departments, that they dealt directly with some of the things that were in the news. That was very interesting to kind of hear firsthand experiences of those situations and how they navigated during those times. And some of those challenges they faced during those times too. Sometimes questioning, what side to be on or how things are going and those challenges. So that was really uh, good to hear about. Baltimore, Maryland, having an individual from Baltimore, Maryland, after watching the show The Wire, and I'm like, man,
yeah,
Baltimore is tough. It's and hearing that perspective from that individual of
yeah.
the resources that are available and how they police in those certain areas of Baltimore, Maryland. That was very interesting. And we kind of engaged kind of directly with, hey, what's going on there? Okay, here's a program offering. And sometimes the discussion boards take away from you actually then, hey, let's exchange a phone number. Here's a work email so I can share with you a program offering we may have locally here that maybe you could utilize in your community. So the networking of having everyone from different locations, and dealing with different populations. So we learned a lot through that, with majority of the individuals in my cohort were from California, which I am from. So we hear a lot about Southern California as well as Northern California, and meeting individuals that are right across the water from me. And we have associates that are the same, individuals that are friends of mine, and I'm like, wow, this is where we meet at, and
Yeah.
LEPSL. So that was amazing. And even though they've been through the program for a while, it's just amazing. So really, I think with all of the different experiences and different rankings, it continues to be a learner, because as you move up, sometimes you get so far away from the beginning of where you were. and it could actually help you understand how to communicate with our Generation Z and our millennials of communicating. So it kind of helps you build that bridge and stay connected, as some will ask for your advice as you move through these conversations and discussion boards. So I think that's very beneficial too.
I really appreciate that. And I know that particular student from Baltimore had a career in Baltimore PD and then transitioned to a different type of law, had such rich experience. I've had the pleasure of working with him as well. And I'm so glad to hear your reflections on the diversity of ranks and experiences. I will say the team and I work very hard. Every semester we shuffle the deck. So you're in class with essentially 20 different colleagues. There'll be some overlap, of course, because of law of large numbers, but we shuffle the deck and craft those classes individually. You know, other programs have the benefit of just random assignment and the computer does that, and that saves them the day and a half that the team and I literally sit down and one by hand put students into groups, thinking we need good representation of geography, good representation of rank, good representation of experience, just to make sure that the classes are as rich as they possibly can be. So it was really, it was affirming for me, and makes those, what is it, about 12 or 13 hours of labor sting a little less to hear your positive reflections on that.
Yes.
Chief, working through your discussion board posts and other work in this course, we had a unit on leadership and morale that I think was one of the favorites from students, and it was definitely my favorite potentially in the whole course. And again, you were first to post on that particular topic as well. And that discussion board question asked to share a little bit about one of the most meaningful mentors in your career, or a leader that you'd like to emulate. And you wrote just a beautiful post on Chief Phil Cater, who at that time was the Chief Probation Officer in Contra Costa County. And you shared quite a bit about the leadership lessons you learned from him kind of as you were coming up. Do you mind just sharing a little kind of 30-second executive summary version of that? Why was this leader so impactful for you?
Well, Phil Cater was very personable. And I think him developing brown bag meetings to be very transparent, I took something from that. It's oftentimes we don't share with line staff. It's just do as told in these kind of businesses, but he was very transparent in his delivery. He was new to Marin County, I mean, not Marin, Contra Costa County at the time. He came from Fresno County and he was appointed chief in Contra Costa County. And he came in from the outside, and during tumultuous times, as we were dealing with budget cuts, AB 109 coming into play, so many things going on, but he took it on to actually just say, hey, let me be transparent in this process and make sure everyone is aware as we move forward, hosting brown bag meetings and having open conversations with all of us. And Phil Cater actually promoted me twice. So one of those things, I'm endeared to him and appreciated that opportunity. But he saw something in me and some of the challenges that, you know, other individuals, like he told me, and I remember a conversation, he said, some people told me I should promote you and some people told me I shouldn't. However, I'm going to promote you and I can always take it from you if I need to. And I said, I had a conversation with him not too long ago. And I said, you know, I always felt like I was on probation from that. And he said, well, it was one of those things, but I learned and I heard your story and knew you would be invaluable. And look where I'm at today. And so that's the thing, is sometimes individual might see something in you might not see in yourself, but he made that opportunity. And I've taken what he did as being very transparent in my delivery of everything I do.
Fantastic. I can only imagine during how much AB 109 changed the state, and probably your job function in particular, how much transparency and communication was important during that time. I really appreciate you sharing that. Well, kind of speaking of kind of career trajectories, obviously you're a chief already.
Yeah.
So in your current role, what motivated you to seek out a master's degree program?
Well, I'm a constant learner. You know, I wanted to make sure I was mentally ready for this. I always wanted to pursue a master's degree, but I wanted to find the right time to do it. I mean, I have, like I mentioned, I have a son that graduated from Stanford recently, and, you know, with his he graduated undergrad from Stanford, then his master's from Stanford. And I'm very involved in my kids. And my daughter was a basketball player in high school, now a college basketball player, and I was a coach. I dedicate a lot of time to my family and travel. I don't miss any games. So I say that. And so therefore it's timing. Now all in college, a little older, mature, able to manage their own schedules, and I could dedicate time and I know how to actually schedule my time. So I wanted to really truly invest in my career trajectory in the sense of what is going to be next and whenever I retire. And I wanted to actually, this is one of those things. I met you at a National Latino Peace Officers Association
Yes, sir.
conference, and we had that conversation. And I was like, wow, you were just so warm and welcoming to me. Then I was at a Noble conference where Johnny Reddick presented at, and she's an instructor. And I was like, man, this is such a warm family, a reputable school, a reputable thing. And I just said, I have to do it. And I would remember, I always just think back to NLPOA when you were at the table. And I'm like, I'm really interested. And following through is everything. And that's why I'm here today. And I mean, I could speak forever on the actual opportunities of pursuing a master's degree, understanding how to communicate and articulate things in a different way, styles of writing, styles of communication, all the things that you'll learn through this program. But that snapshot of it, that I think is invaluable, is what I'll learn and what I can take away. And this was my investment in myself. And I saw the keys to success that Johnny Reddick spoke of, and those 5 keys to success are major.
Yeah. Chief, so many meaningful things to unpack there. I will say, and it sounds like, if you don't mind me saying so, you need a master's degree just to keep up with your own family. So that's part one, which is fantastic. But having had the pleasure to work with, both Dennis Nair and Johnny Reddick in different contexts, they both do such a great job just pouring into the people around them. And they set such a high bar for how to be good mentors. And I think this is probably more common in the law enforcement profession, so it might not feel as novel to you, but just people who so selflessly give themselves to folks around them to mentor them and make them better. And it's just been a privilege to work with those folks. And I remember our conversation from NLPOA down there in the basement of the building where our table was. That's really cool that this is where we are here today. So let's see here as we kind of start to wrap up here, thinking about, again, I'm teaching this orientation course. And as I mentioned, you're only the second student in the history of the program to be recognized in this way in your very first class. So you were particularly well prepared. Can you talk about kind of your onboarding process? I know a lot of students have nerves about time management, family balance, things like that. When you started that first day and those 29 posts in week 1, can you just talk about that onboarding process a little bit, if you don't mind, Chief?
Well, basically, I wanted to be successful. Part of that onboarding was the first day I met you. And when I met you, it was kind of like your commitment to the program. And I knew what my commitment needed to be. I had the opportunity to meet Dennis because I went to, I'm like, as soon as it was like time to jump into office hours, I'm like, I'm there. And it was only 2 of us there. And I'm like, wow, it's time for us to invest in ourselves. And just constantly having these discussions, having the conversation about, okay, how are we going to do this? Abby communicating with you through email, the orientation, constant onboarding process is something that you check off and make sure you're doing everything. I like the way of the email communication. Now I have emails that come to, my San Diego email as my regular email. So the onboarding process for me was so invaluable because it was so welcoming. It wasn't challenging. It was easy to navigate, but I knew what was expected out of me as well in the program. It's not an ask for much when you say, how many posts do you have to have? 3. That's not something that's not attainable or manageable. but you could give more. So your investment in yourself, the more you invest in yourself, the more you're going to get out of this. So, you could do the bare minimum and pass. That's passing. But if you invest in yourself, so I saw through onboarding, invest in yourself more. What do you take away from this? How do you educate yourself? How do you educate others? What do you model for others to emulate? So my onboarding process was basically deeply rooted in my experiences and connections that I saw. Like I said, I have pictures of slides when I saw Johnny Reddick present at Noble. So, and Noble is the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. I saw her present, and I have snapshots of that. That's all part of my onboarding, because at the bottom of every slide, it had LEPSL, and the University of San Diego. So when you have that, you constantly see that's all a part of your process. And Johnny Reagan actually spoke at our scholarship gala for Noble for the Bay Area chapter. And constantly you hear about this education and this onboarding, and it makes you want to pursue that. And I think that was all a part of my onboarding, as I would say, and the constant follow-up and communication. Now in my second class with Nash, Dr. Flores,
Yes,
and
sir.
the communication. And I say with Dennis, being very responsive, responding to your emails and your communication. So my onboarding has been amazing in my first two courses.
Really, really happy to hear it. And Johnny Reddick, just what an absolute rock star. She seems like she's somewhere different every 48 hours, nationwide, making the law enforcement profession better at every turn. And I'm struck again, faculty like Dennis Nair, faculty like Nash Flores, just how invested they are in student success, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just, working alongside them, it just doesn't feel like they're doing a job, right? It
Mm-hmm.
genuinely feels, as I mentioned earlier, like they're pouring into people around them, kind of like you are, right? You invest in
Right.
yourself, you invest in others, collectively lifting each other up. It's really a cool thing to be able to watch happen, so forcefully in an online environment, which it's so cool to see it play out that way.
And that's where I actually would say where those 5 keys to success really came to play in onboarding, is because you look at accessing your personal readiness and your professional inventory for what you're
Yeah,
going to do. And I would say for everyone to actually look at those 5 keys. And this is part of me creating my career roadmap, and that's very important. Then preparing for the process of any position is continued preparation. I'm evolving as a chief. The lifespan of a chief, oftentimes they say, is 4 years and 6 months. My goal is to be beyond that. So that's one of the things, is constantly preparing myself and learning how to navigate all processes. And I say we have to navigate the political landscape of wherever we are. And that's very important. And watch out for those political landmines as well. That's very important in what we do. And what do you do during your wait? As sometimes you're going to be waiting. So I think those 5 keys are important.
fantastic. I love the lifelong learning mantra, Chief. I couldn't agree more strongly. As we start to wrap up here, now I just keep asking you more and more questions after I say that.
No
But
problem.
genuinely, as we're starting to wrap up here, sir, anything I failed to ask about? Any final words for our law enforcement and public safety community out there?
Well, one of the things I would say before I go into those final words, one of the things is I wouldn't be able to do this without the support of my wife, and ensuring that constant motivation, being my biggest cheerleader in what I do, and committing to the work I do, as well as committing to being, in this program. But what I say is a couple things I would want to leave you with, and it's 3 things. Very simple, is to embrace the journey, don't rush the process, and to invest in yourself. And the reason why I say embrace the journey is because you have to focus on the small steps. Don't rush it, because we often rush things, and there will be ups and downs. We're not always going to get 100% on every assignment, but we will do well and get that feedback. You have to learn these lessons in life and be grateful for the good. And you'll hear me, I'm very positive thinking. Be grateful for the good.
Yes, sir.
And don't be afraid to try new things, because I had to step out on faith to like say, do I need this degree because I'm in the position at a top position? But I wanted to add this value to myself, and I value all the people I encounter. That's why I contributed to the discussion board. When I say don't rush the process, which was number 2, that's because persistence and patience, so in order to achieve success, you do have to be patient. And lastly, and not least, is investing in yourself. All of us are investing in ourselves. So we are putting time in. We're also putting money, because we do have to pay for these programs. And we're putting energy in. And all we're doing is bettering our outcomes and bettering our future. So my thing is completion of term 1, when I do complete it in a few weeks, and actually when I get to term 5 and that success, and having the opportunity to walk across the stage and basically saying I have expanded my knowledge for a better life. So with that, that is my contribution to the discussion boards and what I wanted to bring, and tell everyone just to embrace the journey, don't rush the process, and invest in yourself.
Love those 3 main walkaways here, Chief. And I will tell you, at graduation every year, number 1, you got to come down to San Diego and enjoy the May sunshine and walk across the stage, shake the president's hand. I get to say your name as you receive your diploma, which is a particularly rewarding thing for me. But we realize that day we meet a lot of our students' families.
Mm-hmm.
And I say every year, right, it's our key constituents are not the students, it's the families. Right. And we want, spouses and children 5 years from now to look back at their time at the university. Like, we realize we need to earn your time and earn that tuition money. And 5 years from now, we want every student, but more importantly, their families, to look back and they're like, I'm so glad we all collectively made the sacrifice for this opportunity, because here's how it paid off for us.
Yes.
So we do everything with that in mind, that we have to earn this. And that the families are the key constituents. So, Chief, so much to walk away with. Embrace the journey. Don't rush the process. Invest in yourself. Each one, teach one. The family's our core constituency. I love all those as kind of finishing mantras. So as we're going to bring Sarah back in here to finish us off, I just want to congratulate you wholeheartedly on being recognized as the LEPSL 560 discussion board MVP. Well earned, sir. And thanks for everything that you're bringing to the program. It's students like you that make it so special. So thank you for everything that you do, sir.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that. And thank you to Dennis and all my peers that voted me in, to my parents, family, wife, son, daughter. Excited about that. Thank you.
Love all that, Chief.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you both so much. And great discussion. And to our viewers, thank you all for tuning in, whether you're watching live or watching the replay. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us to meet our discussion board MVPs. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.